thank you for joining us today on Dead Headspace. I am your host, Patrick R. McDonough, with my co-host, Brennan LaFaro.
Hello.
And we have V. Castro, author of Hairspray and Switchblades, as well as Maria the Wanted.
Hello, everyone.
And Sonora Taylor, author of Little Paranoias and Seeing Things.
Hi.
You two are the founders of Fright Girl Summer. What was the origin story of that? How did it all start?
Well, I mean, I don't know. You guys all follow me on Twitter and on Instagram, and I've always been very vocal about diversity and inclusion, getting women in horror a bit more airtime, and also women of color, because I feel we're often overlooked. So I thought, you know what? I see all of these men being shouted out. I see all of these, books, horror books with big deals, always getting shouted out. There's the indie horror community is so rich and so cool, and there's so much out there. And I just thought, you know what? There needs to be a space just for us. There needs to be a space where we are included and we feel welcome, and we can promote each other and promote books and just have our own thing going on. So I tweeted about it, and then Sonora was like, "Oh, Fright Girl Summer." I'm like, "Yes, that's it." And then it just kind of went from there.
Yeah, and from there, Violet had also mentioned offhand, it's like, if anyone wants to help put this together, or, I'm coming up with ideas. If you have ideas, let me know. And so I messaged her saying, hey, if you want me to help, I'm happy to do it, with anything going on with it. So, this is Violet's baby, and I mostly help with the website as well as like curating some of the lists and reaching out to people to feature. So it's been a great opportunity, and I'm really happy to be a part of it, because I think it seems to be satisfying a need in the horror community. There's been a lot of really positive response to it, and I'm glad that we're here and ready in this moment, and we can say so many moments it's a part of, and I think it's just good to have it here and encourage reading more marginalized voices through the summer and beyond.
Absolutely.
V, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go right on ahead.
No, I was just saying absolutely. I thought it was funny. Hey, great minds.
Well, that is a compliment of the highest order. All right.
No, go ahead.
So there's so much featured on the website, and you just kind of skimmed the surface there. I'd love to start with the reading lists. Now, Sonora, you mentioned that you were kind of in charge of curating that.
I helped.
What else? Okay, you helped. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
What else went into that process? Because they're huge lists.
Yeah, so I just thought to myself, well, what are some good books by Black women, by women of color, by queer women that I can add? Because Violet said that we wanted to include all women, we also thought of ways to include white women, but, not where it's and here are white women, but we do have a category for independently published, because I do think that's important, because there are white women authors out there that maybe don't need quite as much publicity, like the big names and stuff. But mostly, we just wanted to have a big, diverse reading list so that people, because we're challenging people to read 3 books from those categories, in any way, shape, or form they like, although we're highly encouraging, people to take part in reading 3 books by women of color or 3 books by Black women. But, we wanted to make sure we just had a nice, big, inclusive list. And so it started where, I wrote down some books that I liked, as well as books I was interested in reading. And then Violet did the same. So we just combined the texts together and put it into the list. Violet, do you want to talk more about that?
Yeah. And also, we don't know everyone. And so we also said, hey, if you're an author and you have a book, if you have a blog, or if you want to submit a short story, tell us about yourself. Get in touch with us, because we can, we know who we interact with on Twitter and Instagram, and who we see putting out books, things that come up on Goodreads, but we don't know everybody. So we also encourage authors to say, hey, I have this release, or hey, I have this or this. So it's just kind of grown organically, really, between Sonora and I, just books that we know of, authors we know of, but also people who are like, hey, this person or this book, or people who get in touch and say, hey, I have a book. And that's how it's kind of going, is we are encouraging people to speak up if they have something, and just trying to be inclusive, just giving everybody a little time, because it can feel like it's a small space when really it's not. It just so happens that certain voices, certain publishers, publishing itself, as we've seen in the last few months, is something that has been in need of a reckoning. And I think the time it's about to happen. And, there's no going back right now. And it's good to see. It feels good. I know it's exhausting. I know people are tired. But you know what? Things that need to change are not easy. And so, this, I hope, will be part of that change.
I agree.
Excellent. Yeah.
Sorry, I just went off there. Sorry.
No.
We actually love that. We love.
Yeah, if it's cool, I'm going to set you up to go off again. So my thought, and I've seen this a lot, and to be honest, to an extent, I've been guilty of it myself, of people who basically say, I will read, I'm looking for a good story, and if it comes from a person of color, that's excellent. But if it doesn't, that's okay too. So I'm curious. I want to hear you guys kind of talk about that attitude.
You want to go, Sonora, first?
Sure. Yeah, I actually have an answer to that. So, I hear that a lot, and it's like, I think it's flawed at best, and, it's a willing blinder at worst. It's like the people who say, oh, I don't see color. And that's just not true. But also, like, one of the problems with that statement is it's not taking into account how we've been conditioned since elementary school to mostly read things by white authors, especially white male authors. And then, so often when you see, like, the diversity checkbox on a list, and I say that with heavy air quotes, like, it's like, here's a woman, or like, here's one black man, and then the rest is like all white men. And I think even people who have the best of intentions will fall into these patterns of reading what they grew up reading, or what they were told to read, or I guess I should say who they were told to read. Like, a few years ago, I actually made a New Year's resolution to not read any books by white men for a year, because I was noticing I would, like, try and, change my habits by saying, well, once a month I'll make sure I read something by not a white man. But after I would do that, I would read like 4 or 5 books in a row by white men. And it wasn't coming out of any malicious intent, but it's just the way I'd been programmed to read. So, I did that for a year where I didn't read anything by white men. And it really helped, like, realign my reading habits. It can always be better. I'm always looking for ways to diversify my reading. But it really helped me not only be better about seeking out these authors and these stories, but also I was introduced to so many new authors because I needed to do some research. I couldn't just default to, like, oh, hey, Neil Gaiman has a new book coming out, or, oh, hey, like, Stephen King has a new book, like, I had to, like, do some digging, and as such, I found like some really interesting voices. And I also found out like one side effect of it is I would go back and read things by white male authors, even ones that I really liked, and I'd be kind of irritated with the writing because of just how cliche it was, or how like archaic it was, especially with depictions of women and of all people of color.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just kind of an easy thing to say, like, oh, I just go for the story, I just go for this. But I think being not white, I know that's not true. And for me, it's kind of the opposite, where I remember I was reading what was it, the Passage, the vampire book.
Yep. Justin Cronin, I think.
Yeah. So I was reading that, and it got to the point, like the first one I enjoyed, and then I finished the series, and it got to a point where I'm just like, oh my God, this dude, like what's his deal? This is like, I don't like this. This just doesn't, Christ. I just kind of, I made me stop in my tracks and say, you know what? I can write a vampire book. I think a vampire book would be cool if it was about this. And then I just, that was when the seed was kind of planted, but I didn't really have an idea. But to a lot of people, they're like, oh, there's just one way to write a vampire. There's just one way. And I think it's just programming. And you just have to deprogram your brain. And by saying, I just look at the story, I just look at this, or I want to look at something blindly, you can't. And just as people of color can't blindly go through life, they can't just say, oh, I'm going to be picked because I'm the best, or I'm the smartest, or that is not true. So it's very flawed.
It sounds like you're saying many words that describe one thing, which I've sadly just come to the realization of recently, which is white privilege.
Mm. It is, and it really is. When you kind of see yourself represented all the time, if you see the kind of your background represented all the time, it's kind of like, oh, everything's okay. But if you don't, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't seem right. And sometimes those realities of people of color, of women, they're not nice stories. And, the only one who can tell that story is a woman or a person of color. So I think it's important to listen to those voices.
Yeah, and that strikes me. I'm thinking, I just finished Maria the Wanted, and I don't think just any woman could have written that story. I think it takes a very, very, it takes you.
I mean, that is it's a vampire story that's, not very gothic, set in, dark, stormy weather, and, it's, yeah, she's in the sun and she's kicking ass.
Well, if vampires were real, why would they be isolated to one area,
Yeah.
It's funny.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to add, you put into words, I think, one of the reasons I loved your story so much, even though I didn't think to mention it when I, wrote my Goodreads review. It's just, it's not like, in addition to not being a white vampire, she also is in the sun and kicking ass instead of I do get kind of tired of the Victorian era vampire, or like the old Louisiana vampire from Anne Rice. It's like they don't always have to be from the 19th century and holding up white Victorian Moors, So yeah, I think that's if I were you, I'd highlight that part as well, like just being like, this is modern and like.
Well, I would love to finish the series, and one of my goals is to find a publisher to take it on. But I don't know if you remember in the book or catch it, but Adam, one of the white vampires, and who's very, very old, he was, created in like the 13th century. He made a bulk of his family fortune was built as he goes on life through slavery, and he has to come to terms with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that on purpose because, there are a lot of huge family fortunes in the world that were built on blood. So I had that character created that way for a reason.
I actually just I got 30 pages. I tried my best to finish it in time. I got the books. I got Hairspray and Switchblades mailed to me a few days ago. I tried finishing it. I got 30 pages left. To piggyback on something Brennan said, maybe a man could write that, but I find it hard to kind of fathom. There's just certain details you write in there where I'm just thinking like, never would have thought of that. And I know I don't speak for every guy, but I mean, he's right. Like, and you're right. You guys are right. Only women can write certain things.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Sonora's Without Condition, she writes about a female serial killer and the relationship between the daughter and mother. But it's those details in the relationships and the thoughts and what happens with your body that, yeah, you need to have some of those experiences. And that's why own voices is incredibly important. So, I recently showed some books by trans women, and I'm like, yeah, people should read these because it's their voices, their experience, and they should be telling it. And, we should be hearing them and seeing them for who they are and interested in their stories. So, and I think through storytelling, we can understand each other better. It's about listening.
Yeah, I agree. I have learned a lot ever since I really dove into the indie horror scene. Because I'm a white dude from Massachusetts, and I'm Irish, so I fit the bill for about a few thousand other guys in that area. So that's what I grew up with.
I was born in Holyoke, so I'm laughing extra hard at that.
Oh wait, holy shit, you're a local. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, I lived there until I was 4, and then we moved to Leesburg, Virginia. So, I grew up, outside of Massachusetts, but my family's still there. So.
Yeah, I grew up in a small town called Bridgewater, and it's just like Portuguese, Italians, and Irish people, and that's what it was, and that's all I knew for like the first 26 years of my life. And you're 100% right, V, that reading books, it teaches you like, okay, brain, you can expand, you can learn more. This is how other people think. I love it. And your book, Hairspray and Switchblades, is like it's super original, but it's just like it made me think of shapeshifters in a different light, and I like that. And
oh, thank you.
Just made me want to read more of your stuff. And I hear
Violet. I also want to add with Hairspray and Switchblades that I do appreciate the way you wrote a sex worker as well, because that's something that is not handled well in horror at all, really. There are exceptions, but you did a wonderful job with that.
Thank you. Well, I have a short story collection that will come out probably in like a year and a half, and there's The Final Porn Star is a story in there, so. It's a new story. It's the final girl trope, but done differently.
I love that title, and if I could,
I can't wait for it to come out.
Me and Brennan were talking about that. He'll have a question about that later on at some point. But before we branch out, just to piggyback on Sonora's point about sex workers, I know firsthand. Not firsthand. I know someone that does know from firsthand experience that she was working in the city, and she was talking to the cops in this particular city about how certain sex workers were being treated, which was pretty horrible. They were getting choked by this pretty much a guy that should have been in prison but wasn't. And the cops just laughed and said that's what she probably deserved it. And it's pretty gross when you think about it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, exactly.
Brennan, how about you take the lead so I don't cut you off with a bunch of other ramblings that I have?
If I'm honest, piggybacking off a couple points, you said earlier, Patrick, you said I don't think a man could have written Hairspray and Switchblades, and I think if that was the case, it would be very entertaining, but for all the wrong reasons. Out of almost any other book I can think of, that's satire right there.
Well, I do want to know more about oh man, I apologize if I fuck up his name. Tyrone, wasn't that the
Oh yeah, Tyson, yes.
Oh shit, yeah, I'm sorry, Tyson.
They are, yeah.
Him and was it his boyfriend?
Jimmy. Yeah, Jimmy, his boyfriend Jimmy, the DJ.
I'll just throw this out there. I'd be a fan of finding out more about their story because those guys are entertaining.
I you know what? I love them both. I was like, you know what? I want to have like a gay couple that are, in love. They're just normal people in a relationship doing the best they can, just working. And that's kind of, I think, again, why it's important for women to tell their stories, because, our experiences are often sensationalized and made into something they're not. And we're exploited and humiliated for, the sake of a plot. But let women tell those stories. Mm-hmm. I think that's really important.
And it helps, like, I know there's probably a bunch of guys like me that, like, we have a good heart, but, like, we don't know this stuff until someone tells us. And you could say, like, go ask around and stuff, but sometimes we don't know where to look. So fortunately, I have a lot of awesome women to help me, like, be educated. So I think that's a great thing, and more people like you and Sonora speaking up and doing this whole summer reading list, the whole Fright Girl Summer, everything involved in it. It's probably gonna inspire a few women that are like, you know what, I'm gonna speak my mind, and that's powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we hope so.
Yeah, and a really good example of that is, I wanted to get into what else Fright Girl Summer offers besides just the reading list, which, by the way, we could probably fill up like 2 hours just talking about the reading list. But one thing is posting free fiction, and one of the stories you guys just posted was by Cassie Daley, who I'm thinking that anybody who has, ever been on horror Twitter knows who that is. And she will post from time to time, I'm working on a writing thing, but I'm nervous to share it. And it was so cool to see her say, this is my opportunity to share this with the world. I'm going to put it out there for free, and for you guys to make that happen. And such a great response.
Yeah, I mean, we loved that she submitted her story to us, and we loved her story. It was really well written. I really enjoyed it. A lot of the things I want to say about it would be spoiling the story, so I would just, encourage people to go to frightgirlsummer.com and go read it themselves along with the other stories we're hosting. But yeah, I understand that how, hard it can be to submit something and hope to hear back from it, I'm just glad that people are reaching out with their fiction, and I hope more people will do so.
And besides just the free fiction, I think you guys had like 4 or 5 stories up there right now. There's also places for artists to submit work to be showcased within the community, place for people to write articles, video readings, book readings, things like that, highlights of different book releases that are coming out this summer. I want to hit the article thing real quick. Do you want to share with us what kind of articles you're looking for?
Honestly, I think with everything with Pride, with the Black Lives Matter movement, I think we're pretty open. I know Sonora is really open to. We've discussed it. It's supposed to be an open, safe, free space. Obviously, no homophobes or racists allowed, but marginalized genders are also welcome. We want it to be a place where people can just speak, and because I feel publishing and literary magazines, they can be intimidating, or it takes forever to hear back. I totally get that, but once again, this is to help people shine, to help them to find their voice, or if they really want to say something about what's happening with their lives, yes, say it. We want to hear you. And that's the whole point, is for people to be heard and seen, and to come together. If people need support, and that they want to, and writing an essay or a poem or a short story is their way of doing that, then we're there for them. And I think that's important, especially people from marginalized communities, to know that they have a support system.
And to add to that, I know one of the reasons I was glad that essays and nonfiction were part of what we were asking for is because, being a film studies student and a cultural studies student, I love critical analysis of pop culture. And I would love to hear from people in the horror community, especially women of color, Black women, queer women, get their analysis of texts, get their analysis of a movie, or of a genre, just something that kind of examines examines a piece or multiple pieces, maybe an author in that regard. Because I just think that, there's a lot of room for that. And I know previously Violet and I were speaking, and she mentioned how right now, there's a lot of on the public Stoker Award recommendations list, you have the short nonfiction section, and one of the most prominent magazines that's listed in that section, I believe, Violet, did you say they've never had published nonfiction from a non-white author?
Well, I haven't seen it recently. They might have historically, but I'm looking. I'm waiting for more.
Right.
But in general, yeah, I was kind of like, okay, I'm looking. I just feel magazines, literary journals, publishers need to be better at specific, inviting people of color, women of color, queer authors to submit, because you can say, oh, well, we don't publish it because we don't get those submissions. Well, if you don't see someone publishing them, you're gonna not feel welcome.
Right.
I mean, you're just not. If I pass by a bar and I see, only a certain people, I'm gonna think, oh gosh, I'll be the only one in there. I don't know. Maybe I'm not welcome. Maybe it's not a bar for me. Maybe there's a reason why. So I think there needs to be something that's really says, hey, this is, we want to welcome you. This is what we're looking for. And, it's since, the Black Lives Matter movement started, it's been really great to see people saying, you know what, we've been closed to submissions, but we're opening them back up for Black writers. And I think that is amazing to say explicitly, you are welcome. We want you here. That has to be said and done. And, once again, it's a privilege to, if you think that, oh, why wouldn't you feel welcome? Well, why wouldn't you feel? There's a reason.
That's very well said, and it's absolutely something that I hadn't really considered before. And I think I've seen a lot of that same thing that you talked about with submissions opening geared towards whether it's people of color or women of color specifically lately. And I think that going forward, I'm very hopeful that it's not just the trendy thing to do right now, the thing to do right now in response, that we will see, these fantastic submissions that have a unique voice that this anthology or this publisher never put anything out like that before and received a positive response and is kind of looking to do that, looking to keep that going, looking to say, this is what I've been missing. Let's go.
Yeah. So Bloodbath magazine, for example, had a vampire. They were looking for vampire stories, and then they came out for their submissions, which I don't know if they've closed yet, but I think they might have extended it and said, hey, we want those stories. We want vampire stories written by Black writers. And I think that's great, that they're like, our submissions are open. Hey, come on. The doors are open. And that needs to be done more.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people realize how important that is. Even it's very small. So, for example, Eddie Generous with Unnerving, he specifically, the first part of Rewind or Die, it was only open to women for the first few months. And then he opened it to the general audience or population. But
I didn't know that. That's great.
People had a problem with that, and I was like, why? Like,
was it only white guys?
I don't know, but
that's a fair question.
I have no idea. I don't even care. But the fact is, like, hold on, you'll get your time, but it was a very small, very easy thing to do. It costs you nothing to do that. So those little things mean a lot, and they go really far, I think.
And
Perpetual Motion Machine, Max Booth III. I think it was yesterday or this morning.
Oh, yes, exactly. Yeah. That's great.
That's awesome, and that's a hell of a publishing company, too. I would love my name in that. Who won it? It's awesome to see that he's doing that.
I also wonder if, like, I don't wonder, it's my hope. The only reason I say I wonder is I've never been an editor of an anthology, but I do think that there should also be more of a commitment, not only to put out these calls and really reach out to non-white writers, but there should also be a commitment to not go to print if you only have white writers, like, expand your search. Because what I hear a lot of as well is, well, we put out the call and nobody who was not white submitted anything, or no women submitted anything. And instead of just releasing it anyway and perpetuating, the eternal whiteness of these anthologies or the eternal maleness, it's like, well, assess why and maybe work harder to reach out before you go to print. That would be my recommendation.
That's fair. And you know what? I actually just bought it's all Black female author anthology last night. It's on your summer list. It's I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this. Sycorax's daughter.
Yes.
Am I messing? Am I fucking that up? Sycorax, right? Sycorax's daughters.
Is it Sycorax?
Sycorax's daughter, I believe it's called.
Okay.
Yeah, Patrick, we were both way off.
I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it's Sonora. Do you have your computer in front of you?
I do. I can pull it up real quick.
I believe it's Sycorax's daughter.
That's a doorstopper. It's almost 600 pages, but I'm really looking towards reading it. And you know who turned me on to that? Rhonda J. Garcia, because I talked to her.
Yeah, she's amazing. She is. I love her. She's great.
I talk with her on Twitter sometimes. It's only been recent, but she's like super nice, and I'm pretty sure she said in her it's in her bio that she's got 11 kids, and I got only one. I don't know how. I know you got 3. I don't know how you guys do it.
Well, I was speaking with Sonora yesterday, and basically 2 of them hijacked the call. And I've spent like half the time like over my shoulder looking around because they just were in and out. So yeah, it's.
I think it's crazy. Like I go to work. My wife right now, due to the COVID-19, she just graduated with her master's and is waiting for her state license. But like it's slow, obviously, due to what's happened with the pandemic. And like
congratulations to her.
Oh, thanks. And I just think that like low praise to her and all women. I couldn't do it. I couldn't wake up every morning and go to work and all that. I know guys at my work and guys I have talked with, it's strange. Like I'm asked like, oh, who does the cooking and who does the laundry? And I always look at that and I'm just thinking like, am I the only weirdo here? Because we're partners. We do things together.
Yeah, that's great.
And I just I don't know. I try just going along with the whole like, open your fucking head up and stop being the caveman. But enough of that. Brendan, did you have one more question?
I actually, just real quick before we move on, I was going to say that with Eddie opening up the call to Women First for that series, not only does he deserve that applause for doing that, but if I remember right, the backlash was actually pretty loud, and he really stood up and just had no time for it.
No.
Just, I'm not going to change my opinion, and if you don't like it, you can promptly go fuck yourself.
Absolutely. Honestly, that's what I love about Eddie. He is just like, I'm in Canada. I'm untouchable. And he did the logo
for Fright Girl Summer.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now that I'm thinking of it, actually, we were going to ask you that, but it does definitely bear a little artistic resemblance to like the Rewind or Die icon.
Yeah.
Yep. I had that in my notes because it looks really, really cool. And for those that have not seen it, by the way, go to frightgirlsummer.com. It is a skull. It's a skull about a horror thing, but it's a lot different than other skulls. The way that the line work is in it, it's very cool. It almost looks like vampiric teeth, and it's got this. So that's up your alley.
Yeah.
And it's got this blue nose ring and a blue bandana, and it just looks like like a badass female skeleton.
I have to add a funny story about that. So Violet and I were brainstorming what that would look like, and we knew she had to have earrings, and then I said, well, why doesn't she have earrings? And then Violet goes, yeah, she can have hoop earrings, and then she goes, but wait, skulls don't have ears. and so then we were like, oh, and then I think I maybe said a nose stud, and then Violet said a septum piercing, and so that's what we came up with. And what's funny is I saw a GIF the next day of a skeleton with hoop earrings, and I was about to send it.
That's hilarious.
I like to say better anyway.
Yeah.
And it's pronounced GIF. Holy shit! I've been pronouncing it wrong this whole time. I've been saying GIF.
I say GIF too.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always this debate online: is it GIF or is it GIF? I've just been saying GIF the whole time. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who are like, I'm not going to read her books anymore because she says GIF. It's coffee. The little moving image. That's what.
I'll speak for Brendan here. For anyone that says that, Brendan says, "Go fuck yourself."
That's like the best thing right now.
Brilliant.
I was very excited to see who your featured artist is for the Fright Girl Summer. It is our very own Ellen Avigliano, and she. Yeah. Look, I'm not taking anything away from anyone else, but like she's my go-to person for educating my ass pretty much on a daily basis, and she's always very, very excited, enthusiastic about it.
Oh, she's wonderful. She's been a real champion. She's a sweetheart. It was really great. She got in touch with us and provided all her material, so it's been awesome to see. And we hope other artists will reach out. And yeah, she's great.
I know that she, and I don't want to speak for her, so I apologize, Ellen. But I know she knows a lot of other artists, especially in the New Jersey area, and I've seen some of their artwork. It's excellent. It's top notch. So
Yeah,
just something to think about.
No, we definitely, the artists are also an open call. Like, we definitely want people to submit their art if they would like to be featured on our website. So
Yeah, if they have anything like an Etsy shop, or we definitely want to promote them and put those coins in their pocket.
Like, to clarify, it's just all we would post would be like, a bio, your social media information, and then like a sampling of your artwork that you'd be willing to send us. And then as you saw with her feature, it's like just small images that are in a gallery. So, we want to promote you, is what I'm saying.
That's awesome. Brennan, unless you got any other questions about Fright Girl Summer.
I do. I have one really obnoxious one, so I'm sorry about this, but
that's all right.
Okay, cool. You don't even know what it is yet. It could be really off the chart. So, obviously it's got summer in the title, but have you guys had any discussions or thoughts about what happens come September? Does this become an annual thing? Do you leave it up so people have access to everything going on there and just not take submissions?
I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think it all depends on, if people keep. I won't take the website down because I think it could be a good resource. But I think we'll see how the momentum goes, and I think at the moment there's so many uncertainties. Things are moving quickly. I want to just take it day by day and see what happens. But yeah, I would love to do it. If it could be expanded, that'd be great. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
I actually have one more question to add to that.
Yeah.
Since it's the summertime thing, I know when I was a kid, I used to go crazy for the summer list in my local library. I was curious if that's maybe a possibility down the line to have just targeted towards children's books.
I don't. I know it sounds awful. I have 3 children, but I don't have children's books. But they are not into the scary stuff. So my teen, he is not into the scary stuff. I think I've said this in another on Monster Men, but he'll be 14 soon. Oh my God. Basically, one New Year's Day, a very hungover New Year's Day, he begged me to watch The Ring, and I was like, all right, I was just too hungover to say no. He won't watch anything horror now. He refuses to watch any horror with me.
That is a creepy movie.
So I told him, but now he's like, oh no. And he doesn't like scary books either. And then the little one, he's still too small, and then the little one is definitely too small. So they're mostly reading school books to read every day, which aren't very interesting. So yeah, I couldn't expand it that way.
Do you like horror movies? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, speaking for myself, though, that'd be something I'd be interested in looking at further for like a next iteration of the summer reading list. I actually am pretty familiar with scary kids books because I grew up reading them. But I think what's cool about the ones I read, at least, is it's not so much that they're scary, but they're just more fun horror. And so, it's great for like little kids like I was, who, was just kind of into scary things. But, when you were in school, you weren't really getting books, like funny books about ghosts or witches or anything like that. It was all either like old colonial ghost stories or nothing. And so, I think there's some potential for that. But, and, there's some good series out there. And I would even include like novelizations of like the Hotel Transylvania series or something like that, which I'm 34 and I love those movies.
They're so cute. I love them too.
They're so funny.
My kids do like those.
So that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely room to grow it. If someone who's really into like middle grade and YA horror or speculative fiction said, "Hey, I would totally be into doing this," yeah, I would let them go for it. But at the moment, I just don't have the time to commit to that a whole nother age group.
That's a very fair answer. If it's okay, I'd like to actually pivot to Sonora now, because you have a book coming out at the end of June. It's the 23rd, isn't it?
Yes, June 23rd.
Yes, all right.
It's good. So, I read it. It's good. It's good. Everybody, you got to read it.
I read it too, and I will absolutely vouch for that. So here's the thing. If I write a review, I like to go light on synopsis and stay away from anything spoilery. And I, for whatever reason, I don't know what it was. Maybe I was just really excited to share the experience, but I had trouble writing that one up. So I'm going to push it off to you, Sonora, to give us the synopsis so I don't give away too much.
Sure. It's based on a story idea I actually had for almost 3 years before I finally wrote it, where I thought it would be interesting that, a girl discovers she sees the dead, like that I see dead people idea, but none of them actually want to talk to her, because in all these movies, they're like haunting the kid and the kid doesn't want the ability. But like in this one, the kid like wants to know why, and they're all like, very adamantly not wanting to speak to her. So, that was just the initial idea. But then, it's a story about, a girl named Abby who discovers that she can see the dead because she sees a ghost in an abandoned locker. But, she can't get answers about why this is happening or why they don't want to speak to her because, Catch-22, they won't talk to her. So with that going on, she goes to her uncle's house for her annual summer visit, and it's there she's probably going to find the answers, but she may not like what she finds out. So, and that's, I think, just kind of the synopsis there. It's like it's a mystery involved with the psychic ability she has, but without being too spoilery, it definitely follows like the more kind of gothic storytelling where it's like the ghosts are not the scariest part or the darkest part of the story. There's more to it than just seeing the ghosts.
And I love the because the way you explain the synopsis is kind of how I thought of it at first too, where you get a couple sentences into that elevator pitch and it gets a laugh. It's funny, she sees ghosts, but they run away from her. They don't want anything to do with her. But it's, and it kind of, that's the surface level, but you get through it. And, one of the biggest things I loved about it is you close the book and you're not done with it. There's stuff that you have to process, assuming that you were kind of thrust into the role of everything that happens. There's stuff you kind of have to work out to how would I deal with that as a teenager? How would I deal with that as an adult? And I won't go any further for fear of ruining that experience for somebody, but it's a book I'm really happy to recommend, and I hope a lot of people will pick it up at the end of the month.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope so too. It's definitely like, it's funny you mentioned like, their first elevator pitch is funny, but then like it just kind of goes like darker, because that is kind of how a lot of my stories start. It's usually just something I think I find funny or amusing. And then it just ends up, turning a dark corner. Like, that's how Without Condition was started as well, because I first got the idea by thinking actually, I'll try and keep this concise because it's getting a little spirally, but I actually was inspired by an article about the lead singer of Ghost, who he revealed his true identity because his mom couldn't stop bragging about him to her friends in Sweden. And so he figured it was going to get out anyway. And so, I'm laughing because, Tobias in Ghost, I mean, what he does is he gets up on stage in this giant demonic Pope outfit and sings like satanic metal anthems. And I was imagining his mom going around like, "That's my boy." and so from there, I was thinking, okay, well, what if this was happening with a mom that was proud of their child, but it was really something they shouldn't be, they were a serial killer. And then from there I was like, well, what if the serial killer was a woman? And then, I went from there. And so the whole idea of her mother, being proud of her accomplishments and putting them on a corkboard, drawings or spelling tests, was funny. But then the story itself actually ended up being really, really dark, just about the ideas of love and familial control and stuff like that. So, I guess that's just a running theme between the two.
Now, you had mentioned in the afterword that even though this is your shortest book, it probably took you the longest to write because you just wrote it in little pieces. Is there any reason as far as the content or anything that
it was less the content and more just life things happening. There was a death in the family, and my husband was having surgery, and this was all happening over the course of the summer while I was working on the piece. So I think I just wasn't really in the mental space to be working on it. And then, when I got it back for editing, we'd just been put into lockdown. So, Corona was just starting up in the States. And so that was preoccupying my mind. So it was just all these external forces. But, I did find ways to write it. I wrote, sorry if any of my coworkers are listening to this, but I wrote it a lot while I was at work in between work tasks, because that was really just the only time I could sit down, get into the headspace and write it for some reason. I didn't want to work on it when I was at home, and I didn't want to work on it before breakfast like I'd done with it Without Condition. So, yeah, I think, and that was one of the reasons I actually wrote a piece for the Horror Tree about, pay attention to when, if your personal inkwell is running dry, sometimes you need to just slow down and let it replenish. And so seeing things was kind of a lesson in that regard for me, just to be look, it's okay if you're not writing 1,000 or 2,000 words a day, because there's a lot going on.
That's interesting. Me and Brendan talked to Todd Keeslin last week, and he had the same exact sentiments. He said that, and Brendan, correct me if I'm misquoting him, basically, or I'm paraphrasing, that he takes the weekends off to recharge.
Mm-hmm.
And it got me and Brendan thinking. We talked after the show was recorded, and we kind of felt like he unintentionally gave me and him permission to not rack our brains, because Brendan's working on stories often, I'm working on my own, and we just talk about it and whatnot. And I think that's something a lot of writers get in their head, you have to keep doing this, you have to keep, eventually it'll pay off. Do you ever, what reached you to that conclusion of that it's okay to take breaks, and if you can, do you have any advice for new writers?
Probably just taking a step out of my own brain and looking at the context for why I was writing more slowly. Because, when it wasn't coming to me as fast, my first thought was, oh no, I went through like 3 years of a lot of output, and now I'm drying up, and I'm never gonna write again, and it's gonna, and I peaked with book number 2, and like, and so when I took a step back from that, I'm like, Sonora, there's been like a lot going on. Actually, not to be like, here's another woe I was going through, but one of the big things I forgot to mention of last summer as well is my husband and I closed on a condo, and we're moving. So that was another part of it too. Like, you have 3 big stresses. And so I just had to take that step back and be like, Sonora, like, yeah, it's okay if you're not going to write as quickly, especially because, like, look at everything you've done. And so one of the things I would recommend for new writers, especially new writers that have already written, is to keep lists of what you've completed, because it puts into form, like into word form, what you've done. And when I think about my work in the abstract, it's hard for me to think that I've accomplished a lot this year. But when I write out like each title of a story I wrote, or like each book I finished, I'm like, okay, no, maybe this is actually a lot.
Yeah.
Putting it into numbers, like. And even if it's not a lot, that's okay. Everyone writes at their own pace. And, if a story is meant to be written, it'll be written. I started the earliest version of Seeing Things, I think, in 2016. It was originally going to be a short story, and it was going to be, very different from how the novel turned out. But, something always felt missing. And so I set it aside. And then I, wrote a couple short story collections. I wrote Without Condition. And then, while Little Paranoias was out for edits, I got an idea on how to expand the story to be about the girl's family as well. And then, it turned into a novel, and then I wrote it from start to finish. So, I would say, like, if it's meant to be written, it'll be written. Even if you like just open up a document and write a sentence, or even if you proofread, that counts as writing for the day. Working on your website can count as working on your writing. Like, there's a lot of different ways to say you worked on your writing today. I don't know if you want to add anything, Violet, to that.
No, I actually have to bounce. So, but I will. No, sorry. But I will. Yeah, it's, I'm a bit of it's a school night, and I have to get up early to do the school run.
Isn't it late there?
Because it's like, yeah, it's just after 10.
Oh, okay.
But no, I would say, yeah, I do think you have to give yourself breaks. I personally, I write whenever I can, because I never know what it's going to be like with the kids, and they want me to pay attention to them and be with them because they're kids. Plus, laundry and cooking and cleaning and all the other things that need to be done, groceries. So I do it whenever I can, but I also am quite a driven person, and I feel I put a lot of pressure on myself to meet some of the submission deadlines. I guess one of the kind of chips on my shoulder that I have is that when opportunities arise, I feel like I can't say no, or I can't let them go, because I never know when they'll come around again, especially being, the type of stories I write. So if I see something that's going to be a fit, I feel like I really need to do this, or, oh, this publisher's going to close submissions for a long time. I need to get something in, because I don't know when those opportunities are going to come around again. And I know my chances in general are much smaller than other people's. So I feel a lot of pressure to write as much as I can.
Violet, not to put any more pressure on you, but before you leave, I do think we should tell them about how we're both in an anthology coming out next month.
Oh, yes, Graveyard Smash. That's coming out in July, so y'all need to get that. I have a Latinx horror story, Templo Mayor. So
and I have a ghost story in there that Brennan and Violet might recognize because they read Seeing Things, called The Clockmaker.
Ooh. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's from Candisha. I think I'm saying that right. Maybe
yeah,
I'm not.
Candisha.
Yeah, their first anthology, Under Her Black Wings, was really, really excellent. I'm looking forward to this one.
Cool. Well, I look forward to hearing what you guys think, and I'm just going to plug it real quick. Lockdown, the anthology, it's to benefit the BINC Foundation, which helps booksellers because of COVID. And I actually have a short story in there. It drops June 16th called Asylum. Basically, it's what happens when America doesn't exist. The wall was built, but the amount of melanin in your skin does matter, but not for the reasons you might think. So, yeah. So I hope you guys will check out that anthology. Drops in like a week, and it is for charity.
And one more time before you go, Violet, you also definitely want to plug Worst Laid Plans, which comes out in...
yeah.
I don't know, actually.
August. So end of the summer. Is it August? Yes.
And where can people follow you?
Oh, at V Latina London. Insta and Twitter.
V, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Honestly, thank you so much for having us on and promoting Fright Girl Summer. I know, Sonora and I both, it's really important and we're enthusiastic, but, we want people to feel welcome and guys can get involved too. Reviews, video, readings, book challenges. So yeah.
We actually just put up a reading from CJ Bow.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was reading a passage from The Forgotten Girl by India Hill Brown.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know. I've talked with CJ a little bit. It seems like a pretty nice guy.
Oh, he's really nice, and he writes as well.
That's awesome. Oh, I guess we gotta look into that. Thanks for adding more books to my TBR.
And because you guys are Irish, definitely check out Hell Chose Me by Angel Luis Colon. It was just nominated for an Anthony Award, and it's really good because he's got Irish roots, but he's Puerto Rican.
Yeah, I've heard him talk on Acast.
Yeah. You definitely should get his book, Hell Chose Me.
Chose Me. Okay, I'll write that down.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Fee, unless you got anything else to say, I really appreciate your time.
No, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for staying up late for us.
Thank you.
No problem. You guys stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll talk to you soon, Sonora. Tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon.
I'll send you an email in the morning.
Sounds good.
All right, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Have a good one.
Thank you. Thank you for listening, everybody. Take care.
Sonora, would you like to continue?
Can you remind me the question I was continuing from, or are you just saying continue in general?
Oh, no.
In general.
I just wanted to make sure that you were down to continue.
Maybe just like one or two more questions. I myself, sure. So that sounds good.
Okay, well, if I had to pick one question, V kind of answered it, but how can male authors or male readers help with, just in general, how do I word this? Brennan, help me out, buddy. How do I word this?
How can male, did you say authors or?
I said male authors or writers, readers in general, reviewers. How can they help with Fright Girl Summer?
Well, definitely by sharing the website and sharing the content by retweeting us, but also by just sharing it themselves and sharing their ideas about it, so that their followers can see what they have to say about it. We also welcome and encourage, like we mentioned before, film yourself doing readings of women authors, of authors of color, doing reviews of works by women, and doing, like, if you write just if you can present yourself showcasing the work of women, that would be the way to get your name on Fright Girl Summer. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Awesome. Mildly related to that, you had done, I believe, an online class about teaching men how to write women. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how that came about.
Well, it came about, it started like with all of my stuff now I'm realizing as a joke, because there was a passage that was particularly heinous on the Men Write Women account. And myself and John Edward Lawson, who's the co-editor of Raw Dog Screaming Press, were chatting about how awful the passage was. And to give a little context before I do the next part, I was a early contributor to All Access Con. So, I was participating in some of the sessions. I provided funding in the Kickstarter. And I'm a evergreen, vendor. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Vendor in their table section in All Access Con. So, we were talking back and forth, and as such, I said, hey, maybe I should run a class in All Access Con about how to write women. And John was like, yes, I think that'd be a great class. I think you should do it. So we talked about it and we did it. I put together a PowerPoint. I know there's been a lot going on, but I think eventually it'll be available as a pre-recorded session that people can watch. We're also going to have a follow-up workshop where someone who's feeling brave, or multiple people who are feeling brave, will submit their piece where they've written women and open themselves to a live writing session. I don't want to immediately say critique, even though there may be critiques, but if you're in a writing group, it would be similar to that. And so that should be coming soon. And yeah, it was a really good class. It went well. A lot of people had good questions. My mom came. And so yeah, I really enjoyed teaching it. And, one of the things I like about doing stuff like that is I have a lot of, thoughts on stuff, but a lot of times they feel like they're just swimming in my brain. And it's when I can sit down and do them in a PowerPoint or in an essay or something, they come together better. And so I was grateful for that opportunity with All Access Con.
That's awesome. I don't know that I could be brave enough to submit my own writing for that, but I'm trying.
I mean, the fact that you're even thinking about it, I'm sure it's not nearly as bad as some of the worst published things I've seen. If you ever want, honestly, just how to not write in addition to how to not write women, look up Sean Penn's book.
What?
No, he has a published piece of fiction, and it has a terrible title. I don't even remember it, but my morning was made the day that the passages started getting onto Twitter, and people were like, wow, this is horrible. And then, of course, all I think to myself is, how did this guy get a $1 million publishing deal when there are so many better writers out there not even getting a chance? So
I've seen that account that you were talking about. The Twitter account. I forget the name of it. The one where it's real men writing about women. And
yeah, it's called Men Write Women, and I think it's men_write_women.
I don't know if it's meant to be funny, but I always laugh at it because it's so bad. They always describe if I write women, I write people outside of my race and sex, and the thing I always do, they're fucking people just like me. Mm-hmm. So I normally. Sometimes I do, but normally I don't even describe unless it serves a purpose. I don't describe the race or skin color, and sometimes I don't even describe much about them until later drafts if it serves a purpose. But I'm not like a 16-year-old horny boy. Her boobs were like watermelons, or they were bags of sand.
No, it's so bad that I had a whole section in the PowerPoint about stop stressing on boobs. It's just you can mention, you can just put in there, she had nice boobs, and you don't have to get into a whole paragraph about it. It's not that we mind that they're mentioned. It's just when it's at ridiculous levels, and yeah, like you said, you sound like a horny teenage boy.
Yeah, one that definitely lacks a lot of things, and
Well, one of the things that, always drives me crazy, and I mentioned this in the class as well, is that when men write women, a lot of times, like, it doesn't matter who the woman is, like, somehow her sex appeal needs to be noted, or the lack thereof. Like, and it's just, they cannot introduce a woman without mentioning whether or not, like, in so many words, they want to fuck her. And it's just like, it's so disappointing. Like, it's just like, surely there are women you've met in your life that you don't think that. And even if there isn't, you don't need to put that in writing. Like,
no, George, to get off track a little bit, I love watching authors talk. I got big into Game of Thrones, the show, and I just like listening to George R. R. Martin talk about. I like listening to creators talk about how they came up with stuff and whatnot. And he says, a lot of times I'm asked how I write women, and he goes, well, I write it like it's a man, except it's a woman because they're both people, and that's how.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a great way to approach it sometimes. And then there's other times where, maybe have a woman read it and see, like, if it rings true. I know with Stephen King's first book, Carrie, there's that famous story where he threw it in the trash, and Tabitha, his wife, took it out and was like, well, why aren't you finishing this story? And he's like, well, I just don't know how to write teenage girls. And she's like, well, look, I can help you. And I think, though, sometimes there's the fear of, like, well, we don't want this person who isn't us reading this character that isn't us because we're afraid we're going to offend them. But would you rather them rather have the audience reading it cold, or would you rather, like, have, a beta reader tell you, like, no, this isn't good, or no, I think you should change this? And, I think that's valuable to the writing process.
Yeah. And recently, I don't know if you saw it, but Elle Turpin on our Deadhead Reviews wrote an article today for Pride and Horror Month, and she actually talked about how it's kind of important to have sensitivity readers. I never thought of that, and I'm just like, that's really, geez, that would make my story a whole lot better. So, like, I don't know why more writers wouldn't want to get a better, well-crafted, more in-depth story.
I think it just kind of comes down to that you don't get to tell me what to do mentality, and I think it comes a lot from people who are used to not being told no. So it's usually like people, like a descending staircase of privilege that is, like, in an indirectly proportionate to how willing you are to have people tell you to rethink what you've written.
That makes sense, and that's the internet.
Brennan, I will say one piece of advice I want to give in that regard is that when I do send a piece to my beta readers, I always include the question, is there anything in here glaringly insensitive or problematic that has no place in the story?
I'm going to steal that if that's all right, because that's brilliant.
I want people to steal that, because that's a great way, in my opinion, a great way to approach it. Early in the process before you start putting it out there for people to buy and read.
That's great. Brendan, before we wrap this up, did you have one more? I believe you said you had another question.
Yeah. So let's kind of leave it at your reading list, Fright Girl Summer's reading list. Is there anything on that list, from that list, meant to be on that list that you're reading now or are planning to read coming up here that you want to share?
Yeah, I just finished America's First Female Serial Killer by Mary Kay Mcbrayer, and that was wonderful. I would highly recommend that. It's about Jane Toppin, who, as the title said, was America's first female serial killer. She was a nurse that would poison her patients. And it was really well written. Despite what I write about, I'm actually not that into true crime. I have a lot of, like, conflicted feelings about it as a genre. Like, I'm interested in reading about serial killers, but the way true crime tends to frame it is usually, I don't really like it, especially I don't really like the unsolved mysteries quality behind it, where it sometimes reads as being exploitive of the victims to try and set up suspense, you know. But again, that's, you know, my opinion, and no offense to anyone who likes true crime. I know a lot of lovely people who love true crime. It's, you know, difference of opinion. But, you know, and it's kind of funny because in her introduction, she was saying, yeah, this book ended up being more about Toppin and not about her victims. And I realized that that's not, you know, may not be everyone's cup of tea. And I'm like, well, that's exactly my cup of tea, because that's the type of true crime I enjoy reading. Because for me, it's less about like really showing the heinousness of the crime, because I think that's a given. But I more want to look at like the mentality that goes behind their doings, as well as the way I think our culture can sometimes allow that to happen, especially with people like, you know, for instance, Ted Bundy, who, like, how many times was he, you know, being creepy, but people were saying like, oh, well, you know, he's just a go-getter, or he's just, you know, doing this. And especially more so the way he would get women into his car is by preying on the fact that women are taught to be polite and to say yes, even when they're uncomfortable. You know, he'd say, oh, you know, I really need help getting into my car. Can you come help me? And a side note, it's interesting because I read this, and my mother, when I was growing up, would really vehemently say to me, if anyone comes up to you and says, I need help, come to my car, don't go. Or if anyone knocks on the car door and says, I need help, don't go. And I was just thinking, okay, that must just be a thing. And then I was reading The Stranger Beside Me, which is another book that I like. And I'm like, oh, that's why Mom kept telling me all this stuff, because this is what Ted Bundy used to do. And around the time he was really, you know, getting into the news was around the time I was born. So, you know. But anyway, I was a big sidetrack from America's First Female Serial Killer, but I would highly recommend reading that one. It's very well done. The book I'm reading right now is not in the horror genre, but after I finish this one, I'm going to read Cirque Berserk by Jessica Guess, and I'm really excited about that one.
That's a good segue.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have her on in this Thursday.
Oh, that's awesome. No, she's awesome. I can't wait to read the story, and I've interviewed her before on my site. She's really cool. I can't wait to read her book.
She seems like a lovely person, and we're really looking towards talking with her. Just a book, in case you haven't heard of it, Mindhunter, the nonfiction book by John Douglas and Mark Olshaker. I probably fucked that last name up, but they're the two FBI agents that were responsible for curating and interviewing serial killers in the 70s and basically documenting it, and I like that too. I like the psychological, basically like the psychology behind how they think. My wife is a social worker, and she's educated the shit out of me over the last 7 years, and I'm hooked on that stuff too. Yeah.
No, that sounds great. And then just one other recommendation I'll leave with you is My Friend Dahmer by Derf Back Derf. That's a graphic novel about it's his true story, Back Derf's true story about how Jeffrey Dahmer was his classmate.
Oh, that was wasn't that a movie recently?
Yes, it was a movie with some kid that was on the Disney Channel. There's this trend of kids from the Disney Channel playing serial killers, because Zac Efron played Ted Bundy in that Netflix movie.
Yeah. Wow, I had a friend that I skated for Disney on Ice, so I guess it won't be surprising seeing him. And I'm not being snarky, just to be clear for that one dummy that might say this. I'm not being like snarky or poking fun, but he's a super flamboyantly gay Asian kid, and if he were to play a serial killer, I'd be interested in that.
Same.
Brendan, just wanted to see if you had any books that you would suggest real quick, because one that me and him love is True Crime by Samantha Koyesnik. We thought that was a great one.
Yeah, that one was really good. I loved that book.
Yeah.
I don't think I've talked to anyone who didn't really, find that book an experience. It's going to be one of the top of the year, no question.
Absolutely.
Sorry, did I cut you off again?
So I guess I would also say I started Let's Play White by Cheshire Burke yesterday, and That's one I have been meaning to pick up ever since the cheesy shit hit the fan. And thank you guys for the excuse to do so.
It's so good. I loved that collection.
I loved the opening story.
Yes.
As soon as we get off here, I'm gonna hit story number 2 on my Kindle. But the Walter and the Three-Legged King was, oh my god.
That little rat, man. I still see him and hear him, you know.
And it's such a cool mix of this like kind of surreal supernatural horror. I guess I'd lump the rat into supernatural. And then it just gets very real all of a sudden. It's I mean, even if that was the only story in the book, I'd still be happy to recommend it. And I've got I'm probably gonna butcher her name. I feel terrible, but Tananarive Du. I've got her Ghost Summer coming in, and I'm gonna jump into that right away. I read My Soul to Take, My Soul to Keep, which I can't remember the exact title, but I read it as part of the Summer Scares program last year. And it's funny because I read the synopsis and I wasn't sure if it would be for me, but I ended up loving it. It was, she is such a writer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she also recently released an annotated screenplay of Get Out with Jordan Peele. And so I'd be interested in checking that out, especially, like since I mentioned before, film studies person. So, but yeah, I definitely want to read more work from her in the future.
I saw that. I had no idea she was involved with that.
Well, yeah, because one of the things, one of many things she's known for is that she was one of the first professors to teach a class about Get Out. And, a lot of people ended up tweeting about that. And so, yeah, and now she's worked on this annotated screenplay. I think that's great.
That's awesome. Yeah. Patrick, anything you want to share besides the book that you can't pronounce?
No, just one more book I was going to talk about. I looked at the list. There's so many books that I want to read. There's authors I don't know yet that I want to put in my repertoire. That will happen over time. I'm reading one book at a time very slowly, but Crossroads by Laurel Hightower. Brandon and I cannot wait to get our hands on that. It looks amazing.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that too. I really liked Whispers in the Dark.
Whispers in the Dark legitimately made me cry at the end with the epilogue. I don't know if you talk about kids and happy stuff more so than sad, even sad. I don't know. Hits me in the feel good spot. So Sonora, one more time for people to hear. What is your book coming out and when is it coming out?
Yes, so my next book is called Seeing Things. And it's coming out June 23rd in ebook and paperback. I'll be tweeting about it a lot, so you can follow me at Sonora Writes on Twitter. And I'm also at Sonora Taylor on Instagram.
And for anyone that wants to check out the frightgirlsummer.com, anyone that has a lack of knowledge in female authors, LGBTQ plus community authors, black women authors, and so on, I highly recommend going to frightgirlsummers.com and following through with that list because you'll probably be a better person for it.
Sonora. And one more Sonora Taylor plug. If you have not read Little Paranoias, that was a top tier collection last year. Get on that immediately.
That's another book. Yeah, that's another book I have not heard one bad thing about.
Well, get on it immediately. That's what I just said.
Oh, damn it, Pat. Sonora, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me and Violet on here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope this goes without saying, but in the future, we would love to have you on again.
Yeah, absolutely. Just let me know and be happy to do it. I mean, not getting too far into the plugs, but I know I'm hoping to release another short story collection in 2021. So, and even between stuff like that, if you ever just want to chat, I'm here.
Absolutely. I don't see why not. You know what? That's all I got. I don't know where I was going with that. So, thank you for your time again. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
All right, see ya.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
We are in your mind. We are all around. You are now leaving Dead Headspace.